Welcome to the Takeaway Lesson Tutorials for the World Citizen Global Teacher. This short segment is on the bonus lesson that's provided with Level 1 World Citizen and Civility for Global Teachers, and this lesson is called the Cultural Continuum. So we hope that you've been following along with the lessons. You would have reviewed 5 lessons already that were takeaway for the Global Teacher Level 1 program. And this, as mentioned, is a bonus lesson. The suggestion is that you review all of the lessons in the order that they're provided. So start with 1 and make your way through to 5 and end up here at this bonus lesson. And keep in mind that the content is intended to scaffold, and it's written for ages 5 to 10. Depending on the level, the culture, the background, the overall temperament, and interest of the children, you can adapt the content as you might see fit. So you are probably realizing as you're going along that the core takeaway messaging in these first level 1 lessons is foundational, that these key messages, for example, about bias, about culture barriers, about sameness and difference, about me versus we, all of the content in these initial lessons is foundational in that we're planting seeds for children to build greater cultural competence and to have a sense of how culture is important, but that how it is just one part of global citizenship. We also know that based on the 21st century learning framework, cultural competence is critical in our modern age to fostering collaboration, and that children have to have advanced communication skills, including digital understanding. For example, research, working online, communicating online, and advanced communication skills as well. So this continuous learning that learning about culture encourages is one really good way to foster overall citizenship mindset. So this lesson is a bonus lesson. Depending on your age group, how many lessons you want to do, if you're doing a series of short lessons either online or live, you can decide to include the Cultural Continuum lesson or not. And what we're trying to do here is to, in a subtle way related to culture, introduce the concept of continuous learning. So this is a first step of the continuum, which is cultural awareness. But as one key message, we want children to understand that they'll always be learning, that they need to keep learning, keep asking questions, keep being curious, that you'll never know everything about this big, huge world and all the amazing people that live in it. So the theme is cultural awareness, and we know back of house that it's leading to competence. Of course, we don't express that to children, but you might have an opportunity to express that to parents if they're so inclined to pay attention to what you're teaching, or if they want to attend the class. So all of these global teacher lessons are built around the rationale, the general rationale of world citizen. And you've probably heard that many, many times by now. But in a nutshell, it's about how we are all citizens of the world. As humankind, we live and learn together. It's an ever-changing global village and classroom. We need to share our knowledge and experiences. And by connecting and collaborating, we can build a better, brighter, and more civil world. So the lessons are all devised in the same way. First of all, here we have the chart that shows the learning objectives, how that ties to social competency, and what the skills are that are embedded in the lesson. So our objectives here are: we want children to understand what cultural awareness is. We want them to know why they need to keep asking questions, and we want them to be able to describe examples of culture, including their own. So, the competency is that children would understand that cultural awareness is the first step to being a good citizen, and it's not good enough just to be aware. Being curious is more important. And that also sets the tone for a positive mindset about differences. And we want children to start to learn about, how to think about how to keep learning about culture. So moving through the lesson here, the usual recommended pre-reading. There's some books and resources. There are, some different clips, some activities. We encourage you to review the whole lesson, to click on all those links and to browse through and see what you come across. I love this YouTube clip about feed your little curiosity machine for parents. I just love that. And depending on how you run your classes, you could send home little summary documents or tip sheets or something for parents as well. All right. So, there's music. You could take, one of the things that we're going to ask you to do is to bring some music. Ask children to think about their culture. Their parents can help with this. See if they can bring, or a parent can email or send, a clip about culture. So one thing that I want to mention here, just in case, is that depending on where you're from, you might have a different experience of this. But to give you a sense of it, in Canada, where I am from, my name is Lou Bayer. I'm co-founder of the World Citizen Alliance. But in Canada, we have a lot of diversity in Canada. And we encourage, it's the Canadian way, people to keep and embrace their heritage culture. If they immigrated to Canada or they were refugees to Canada, we want people to celebrate where they were born and, what they bring with them, their traditions and culture and so on. But there is also an important aspect of Canadian culture which incorporates those other cultures. And so people might say that they are Canadian Chinese or Chinese Canadian. They might say that they are, Filipino Canadian. They might, celebrate their religion. They might, wear their cultural clothes. In Canada, there really are no restrictions to the extent of how a person exhibits his or her culture. But if you ask born in Canada Canadians to describe their culture, oftentimes it's not as sort of explicit or differentiated as another culture might be. So, for example, if I am a Canadian child who has one parent who was born in Canada and one parent who maybe comes from another culture, my traditions are a blend of maybe Canadian culture and another culture, and so it's very difficult to pick out something that one might describe as uniquely and specifically Canadian. There are things, for example, a maple leaf as a Canada flag, or some cultural foods, but those vary depending on where you are in Canada. The point I'm making is that as the world gets smaller, in more countries than not, this kind of thing will happen, where people might have a tradition or a sense of culture that maybe comes from their parents or grandparents. The children themselves may be starting to understand themselves in the context of a world culture, and that's okay. In fact, that's what we're trying to encourage here. So I'm just making the point that you have to consider it could be that, a child doesn't have what they would describe as their own cultural music. They have adopted the music of the culture they live in now, and that's their culture. So we just want to be careful how we phrase things. We want to celebrate where there are distinct cultural aspects, but we also don't want to make anyone feel uncomfortable if they don't have what they could describe or we could describe on their behalf as a distinct cultural element. All right, so we're going to have children have their name tags, introduce themselves, and so on. And then the first activity we do here is an I am curious about culture. This is a scavenger hunt. So we give students a handout, and sometimes we'll pair them up, or we'll use, the handout is mostly pictures clues as opposed to words for the little children. And we're going to choose items that the children will understand. And each trainer, you'll have to create a hunt based on your child's level and the space in the classroom and so on. And we're going to put children in teams, and we give them each a small microscope or magnifying glass. And you can get those at Oriental Trading, for example. We're going to make some clues, and we've given you some examples in the lesson plan here. And I would say 5 or 6, and we're trying to create a scavenger hunt. We're trying to get children to understand that there are different cultural aspects. So, for example, number 1 here, the idea was look beside a door for a flag that represents Canada. So even if the children don't know what a Canada flag looks like, they're going to look beside doors and they're going to see a flag, red and white with a maple leaf. And after the hunt, after everybody's done the hunt and found all the things that go with the clues, then you can talk about it and explain it and describe it. Look under a desk for something you need to travel the world. And maybe this is a passport. And you can make passports. I believe we did that in the first lesson. So you can keep them and bring them out this day. Or you can just make a few folded paper passports. So you can devise the scavenger hunt with the questions that you like, but generally we want to cover off aspects of food, aspects of dress, aspects of travel or language, a little bit of everything to give children an idea of basic variances in cultural elements. Okay, so there's another take-home activity here. Learning how to say hello in different languages. You can change that and choose whatever language you want. For our example here, we've just picked at random 5 countries. Terms to know, as we always have, listed there. And then in our script here, we are going to talk about first cultural awareness, what it is. And so cultural awareness is that we have to be aware that things are constantly changing, that we have to expect things to look different sometimes every time we go out. So I show this clip, it's a YouTube clip on change, and we want them to know that things are always happening, so they should be ready for it. You know, and this is where maybe sometimes we can give out those little magnifying glasses, and then you know that we're going to be doing this clues, this little scavenger hunt with the children. So when we talk about change before we do the hunt, it's a way of children feeling less nervous about seeing things that they haven't seen before. We explain to them that learning and asking questions helps us be ready for change, and then we're excited when we see something new or different as opposed to fearful. So this is a way that we can show them that we have to continuously be ready for different things, to learn about them, to ask questions, to be curious. And most children are naturally inquisitive, so in a way we're reinforcing this idea. Then we're going to do our scavenger hunt, and we're going to debrief that by talking about, you know, what culture is, which they learned in the first lesson. We're going to talk about how we use information and things that we learn. For example, you learn the alphabet. Then you put one letter first, and then you put letters together to make words. You know, we're going to explain all of this to them, and the script is quite detailed, so you can pick and choose, you know, which pieces of it you want to use verbatim or how you want to change the way you present it. So there's a clip here on curiosity, and then it's after this curiosity clip that I like to do the scavenger hunt. So we've had a little bit of theory. The children have been sitting and listening for a while. And then we're going to let them play. Let them work around the room. There's an image here in the lesson of the little magnifying glasses. I get them from Oriental Trading. And we're going to ask children to work in teams. Or if you have just a small group, 5 or 6 children, they can work independently. And then we're going to talk about, after they've solved that scavenger hunt, a little bit more about being curious. And we're going to apply it to learning about themselves. So everyone's going to have a partner, and we put the stopwatch on. we're going to give them some questions, or we're going to ask them to just ask at random 3 or 4 questions. With the little kids, start with 2 questions. Older kids, you can go up to 5. You can provide the questions as we have, or you can let them ask their own questions. And we're going to tell them that we want them to try to remember what they learned about the other person. And we explain that asking questions is how we learn about the world around us and the people around us. Looking for clues about things when we don't understand them. That's like the scavenger hunt. We want them to know that it's okay if other people ask questions about them. Within reason, of course, and you might have to cover off a bit of that privacy and being safe. But generally, we want them to be comfortable sharing a little bit about themselves too. And we want them to understand, of course, we have to be safe, but that it's good to be naturally curious about other people. You can then do the 5, say hello in 5 languages. You can send children home and ask them to practice, saying hello in different languages to different people they meet. And we can do the take-home quiz. Once again, I think that it's a good idea to always have a tip sheet or a summary of the lesson, maybe a little index card or a worksheet, something that you can give the children to take home so that they can explain, or if they can't explain, their parents can see what they learned about in class. This clarifies the message. It also solidifies the message when children can talk about it and parents can repeat it and hopefully endorse and support it until you see the children at the next class. So there we go. Introducing the cultural continuum. The first stage of that continuum is cultural awareness. Thank you.